Episode 10, Fame.
I am famous for not being known. I'm surprised you are back. Thanks for remembering me. No one knows who I am but you guys. I am not famous, and it's kind of pissing me off. If you had to choose between fame and money, which would it be? For me, clearly it would be money. I'd take money over a fame sandwich in a heartbeat. Fame is short-lived. Sometimes. And it doesn't pay the bills. Not always. But it certainly can help a person get work. I don't bother keeping up with who's famous these days. We always hear the words rich and famous together. They're strung together like beans and rice. And there's probably a story behind that. I remember the comedy duo of Beans and Rice back in the 1950s. It was Larry Beans and Frank Rice, and those were their real names. They grew up together and started doing routines at grammar school. After failing high school in 1947, they hitchhiked from their hometown of Morton, Illinois to Las Vegas and got a gig opening up for the comedian who opened up for Slappy White. The pay wasn't good, but neither was their act. After struggling before belligerent audiences for 5 years, Beans and Rice got their big break in the form of a movie script. One of the cooks at the dive they were working at was a wannabe movie producer. Having seen their act 100 times, he came up with a script written around the pair and accosted them to star in his first motion picture. Shot on a shoestring budget, Spies Gone Mad took 2 days to film. It took even longer to edit, but within a month's time, it was successfully sold to Warner Brothers and shown all across America. A slew of cheap movies quickly followed, like No Time for Watches, The Boiler Boys Break Things, and Beans and Rice Pass Out. Although these were all B movies, Beans and Rice were on a roll. Sometimes they could even afford a roll with butter. But the bottom dropped out of their career quickly when Warner's failed to renew their 6-month contract. Citing the fact that they just weren't that funny, the film company replaced them with a pair named Lewis and Martin. No one seems to know what became of Beans and Rice after that. They just disappeared like a couple of side dishes at a cheap Mexican restaurant. Everyone knows what Andy Warhol said about fame, so I'm not going to bother repeating it here. That was one of the few things he was right about, though. The other was Lou Reed. It's not just people who are famous. There are a lot of things that have fame. There are famous monuments, houses, cars, beaches, rivers, cats, restaurants, dogs, dates and times, trees, candy, drinks, you name it, and fame is there. It's kind of overrated, really. And the saddest category of fame are those having to do with tragedy. We even made up a word to distinguish them, but very few people use it or know what it is. I'm talking about infamous. And it doesn't even have to be a real event. Romeo and Juliet is fiction, but it became a tragic yet famous story. Bonnie and Clyde were real, and they were famous, but in a bad way. So they were infamous. Either way, if a massive amount of people know about it, it's famous. It's just that simple. David Bowie met John Lennon shortly after Bowie's meteoric rise to fame, and Lennon cautioned the new star on the pitfalls of fame and what it can do to a person's psyche. Bowie assured Lennon that he could handle it. Several years later, the two met again, and David told John that he was absolutely right. Being famous messed with Bowie in ways he could not even imagine. They wrote a song together about it, and it became a big hit for Bowie. It was called Fame. You might have heard of it. Unless you live in a greenhouse with no TV or internet, you can't help but be exposed to the people, places, and things that are famous. I happen to fall into that category, but am still fascinated by the psychology of fame. It plays a big role in my books, Chase the Rabbit, Rabbits Never Die, The Hollywood Murders, and to a lesser degree, Aloha Lugosi. Have you ever opened a door at the precise second in time that someone on the other side was coming out? There's that awkward moment where you look at each other. That happened to me in 1995 at the Bunch of Grapes bookstore on Martha's Vineyard. The person coming out happened to be one of the most famous people in modern history. It was Jackie Kennedy Onasis. I knew she had a house there, but had never actually seen her. Then bam, all of a sudden, there she was. And it was unmistakably her. She had on those big Jackie O sunglasses. So I said the first thing that popped into my head. "Oh, I'm sorry." She smiled and crossed the street, alone, and disappeared into a little dress shop. President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas on November 22nd, 1963. First Lady Jackie would forever be famous for her role in the White House and how she handled the tragedy with strength and dignity. The entire world grieved the loss of the president, and we all felt sorry for our former First Lady. On the day I happened to almost literally run into her, I was given the opportunity to say I'm sorry to Jackie Kennedy in person. So do you really want to be famous? What is the price? Loss of privacy? A messed up idea of your importance in the world? Many people who achieve it wished it never would have happened, especially those who had it for those 15 minutes and then lost it. I'd give it a shot. Bring it on. This is the not-so-famous Steve Thomas reminding you to subscribe to the show, and the next time you have beans and rice, think of me. Grab the rabbit by the throat and shake it. Goodbye.